Thank you, Mary. Sorry, I had a moment with my screen sharing. So my name's Sarah Marcus. I live in Salmon, Idaho also, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I learned this model a couple years ago now. And I'm so honored to be able to do this again. This is, I think, my third presentation. And these skills have literally changed how I interact with myself, my kids, my husband, my clients, my friends. Um, they present as so simple in some ways, but when you use them consistently, they can really shift how you experience emotions, and how you navigate external stressors coming in and the perceived stressors within your body. Um, and so we'll just get going. I invite you to ask any questions that you'd like in the chat, and I'll pull it up right now as I'm talking about that so that I can see, or raise your hand in the reactions section. And then there will also be my intention is to spend the first hour sharing the resources and the skills, and then leave time at the end for questions and more interaction. So welcome. All right. And then in honor, the Salmon, Idaho location is the home to the Agadika Shoshone-Bannock people. And this is a land acknowledgement. And so we honor the sacred and historic and unique relationship Indigenous peoples have with their ancestral lands. We also recognize the intergenerational strength and inherent resiliency of Indigenous communities of this land, and how this also continues to be passed to each generation today. And if any of you ever visit Salmon, we have a lovely center called the Sacagawea Center, and it's got really neat interactive, not really interactive signs, but like a nice trail, and it's very peaceful along the Lemhi River. All right. So, with resiliency, it's helpful to kind of capture what we're talking about. And so, with that, thinking about what or who gives you strength. Oh, I did it out of order. What or who uplifts you. And so literally right now, and the more when I ask the questions, I invite you to think about them, and to really kind of connect, because each moment in our day that we can pause and think about pleasant, neutral sensations, what uplifts us, what gives us strength, what helps us get through hard times. Every little microsecond that we feed into that enhances our resiliency. And it puts little pennies in our resiliency bank. And the opposite is also true. So the moments where we feel beat down or we're negative self-talk to ourselves, those are little pennies out of our bank. And so the more pennies we can add to our resiliency stores, the better. And even, I realize it can be a little awkward, but if you feel like sharing something that gives you strength in the chat, I invite you to do that just for your own kind of participation, if it keeps you present easier, and genuinely just, finding something that gives you resilience. My kids are definitely up there, even though they also really test me. Yeah, family. Thank you. Yeah, moms, they're nice too. Arts and crafts and walking with your dogs. Thank you. And so just thinking about too, what is your definition of resiliency? So I really want to hold space for the reality that life is hard. Holy cow. It seems like most of the people, and obviously I'm a therapist, but even in my personal life and just navigating the world, it seems like a lot of people are struggling right now for all sorts of different reasons. And so really holding space that we don't always have to be strong to be resilient. We can navigate resiliency in all sorts of different ways. But really it's the ability to, I guess, think about your own opinion. And again, if you want to type it or raise your hand and share, that is lovely. But being able to learn new ways to get through the tough times and being able to accept help. Yeah. Oof, asking for help, accepting help. Those are tough and tough times. And I love this photograph of the tree growing out of a rock. I think that also kind of imagery is always pleasant. Well, not always, but imagery can be pleasant. And there's, I meant to look it up. There's a plant in Hawaii that grows out of lava. And so it's kind of that same thing. Like we can still flourish in the midst of really difficult things, and accepting and asking for help are absolutely part of that. Thank you, Sandra. Erica, I
Okay,
see your hand. Yeah.
there we go. Um, I was just having a conversation with one of my peers, and we were kind of joking about resiliency and how a lot of it is learning how to spiral better each time. Each time you have like, you feel like you're spiraling, like learning how to get better at that.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you. Yeah. You're never free from the spirals of life, but figuring out how to do it better. Yes. Thank you. And so I'm going to explain this further. Oh, I think I got my slides messed up. Let's see. Okay. I'll explain the resiliency zone. And then, oh yeah, that makes more sense. I'll explain it and then have you guys choose your resiliency zone number. Because my hope is by the time you log off today, you'll be a little closer to the middle. So this is the model, the community resiliency model. The basic concept is that we have a resiliency zone. It's 100%, well, not 100%, but it's kind of not taken from the window of tolerance, but there's obviously commonalities if you're familiar with that. When I first learned this model, I was like, this is basically the window of tolerance. But I really like the resiliency zone. It's grown on me. And so we all have a resiliency zone, an okay zone, and all of our emotions can exist within this zone. We can experience anger, depression, sadness, all jealousy. I mean, I don't even know why. There's so many emotions. They can all exist within this resiliency zone, and we can get bumped up. And so being able to know when we're in our zone is one of the foundational components of this model. Yeah, I gotta click a bunch. And so when we get bumped out of our zones, and I'm pretty sure that the majority of us, not the people in this room, but just people in general right now, have not been in our zones consistently lately. And we're never always in our zones, but there are people who are pretty much stuck in a high zone or a low zone, and may not even be aware of it. We are so resilient sometimes and so adaptable that we get bumped out of our zone and we just learn how to acclimate to that discomfort. And so, again, one of the most important things about this resiliency zone is being able to know where you are and when you get bumped out, high or low, and having resources that we'll go over to get yourself back in. And again, I'm from Salmon. And so if anyone is familiar, we have a beautiful river that flows through here that people come from all over the world to float. And I love to think of the resiliency zone like a river. Right now, it's been a little rainy and the weather's picking up. And so our river's a bit higher and there's logs floating in it and it's quite dangerous. And so it's cold and it's fast and it's murky and it's kind of a high zone right now. Like the majority of people in town don't really float when it's like this, unless they're very experienced and they enjoy that excitement and um, kind of thrill of the high water that really can be very scary for other people and not safe. And so our bodies are just exactly like that. We experience strong emotions, and being able to navigate those emotions and be aware, okay, I'm in a high zone. I need to use my skills to get back into my resiliency zone. Oh, I'm in a low zone. I'm really struggling with extra sadness or depression or the weight of the world right now. I need to use some skills to get myself back in my resiliency zone so that I can navigate the rapids a little bit more tactfully, navigate the spiral with more grace. And so now I invite you to, oh yeah, before we classify or before we kind of pick our zone, another really very window of tolerance skill or concept is that depending on our stressors, like I'm pregnant and I hurt my knee and my window of tolerance is a little smaller these days because I'm tired and I'm growing a human and I have two toddlers. Well, not a toddler, I have a 6-year-old, a toddler. So anyway, just being able to say like, whoa, my window of tolerance is smaller. I need to increase my self-care. I need to take more resiliency breaks through the day. I need to reach out, ask for help, schedule that extra session with coffee break with your friend or extra session with your therapist or call your mom or dad or friend. So really being able to know that our zones, like normalizing that our zone can shrink and it can get bigger. Um, and maybe doing harder things when your zone is feeling bigger because you have more bandwidth, more capacity to navigate those things in your life that are hard. And so now I invite you to think about where you are. And so scales are nice. And so, 0 is like, whoo, bottom of the low zone, 10 is top of the high zone. And just give yourself a number uh, right now and just kind of notice where you are without judgment. It's information. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, feel free to share. No pressure. Thank you, Addie. Thank you, Michaela. So, we're going to start with kind of the pleasant components. Common reactions to being connected to our well-being. So, when we're in our resiliency zone, when we are operating within our capacity, we have more access to strength and courage, collaboration, coming together with a joint purpose, gratitude. You have more capacity to advocate. And I know, this Empower Idaho is a program for service providers. And I saw someone who was peer support in here. And so really knowing what we need to do to take care of ourselves so that we can be there for others. And whether or not you're a service provider, being there for our partners, our kids, our friends, and family. But most importantly, you need to be able to show up for yourself. And so just really being able to create a snapshot of what it feels like to be in your resiliency zone. And connected to your sense of well-being. And then highlighting the things that throw us out. And so stress, spiral. I love that. I'm gonna use it all the time. If that's okay, Eric. Really understanding that positive stress can be helpful. Positive stress helped me edit my PowerPoint for this presentation. I was like, I'm excited about this. I need to make it a priority. Tolerable stress. So, and being able to notice the positive stress, the body responses to a mild or moderate stressor. brief stress response increases heart rate, blood pressure, hormone levels. Balance returns quickly. That is one of the most important parts, is that we can get bumped out of our zone and balance is restored relatively quickly and without too much output of energy. Tolerable stress, time limited stress response results in short acting changes. Balance returns with help from support systems and other interventions. And so that's knowing when you need to do something to get back into your zone. And then toxic stress. So again, I think there's a lot of toxic stress in the world right now, and knowing how to set boundaries with that. I've got some friends that really like to talk about stressful things that are going on, and I have to check into my body and say, okay, I can listen. I want to be a support for my friend, but I can only listen for a little while before it's too much. And so being able to respectfully say, I'd rather not talk about this right now. Can we change the subject? Because there's so much toxic stress in the world and in our lives, and just part of it. And this is also trauma, and maybe, you know, there's relationship trauma, and then there's car accidents, and there's all sorts of different things. So just holding space for the prolonged activation of a stress response systems in the absence of protective relationships. And so there's not always an absence of the protective factors. But if your body is constantly in a state of fight or flight, it exhausts your resources and you don't have the capacity to navigate the world the same. And so a really important component of this model too is that this model highlights that this is not weakness. This is not our inability to navigate emotions. I've been a therapist since 2011, and it wasn't until the last 4 years that I fully understood how emotions participate in our bodies, and the relationship between our thoughts and feelings and emotions, cognitive behavioral therapy. But this work, bringing in the somatic body sensations, kind of was just this extra component. And so, we're all just humans navigating a very unique journey, our own. And none of this is about weakness. It's all about just understanding the biology of our body's reactions. And so CREM, Community Resiliency Model, helps individuals learn to read their nervous system to return to their zone of well-being, resiliency zone, through the use of simple wellness skills. So I promise we're going to get there. But this part is a nice foundation to support just how helpful these resources will be. And then another really neat thing, I'm a big fan of the moon and its tides and the cycles, and watching the moon, rise and set, and thinking about how when there's a full moon, you can have super tides, just blows my mind. Because our bodies are a lot of water, majority of our bodies are water. And so, also checking in with the natural rhythms, and for women especially, the cycles of our bodies, our monthly cycles, all of that plays a role in how we're navigating our resiliency zone, and noticing when in the month your window of tolerance is a lot smaller, and when it grows in relationship to so many factors. But being open to and aware of those cycles and the rhythms of nature and life, and men too. Your bodies are just as much water as women's. Maybe, I don't actually know if that's a fact. I should look that up. If there's a difference between how much water is in a person's body. But we're all impacted by the natural rhythms of nature. And think about the trees. I can look out a window right now and notice that the leaves have started to sprout, and have for a couple weeks. But I was traveling this weekend, and I was at a higher elevation, and a lot of the trees were still just kind of little branches. And so it's the rhythms of nature. We're animals, so we are just as impacted by it. And noticing how spring, oh, thank you, Mary. 60%. Okay, humans. Perfect. All right. And so then the other component, I know this is a lot of information and I'm trying to get to the skills. The other really fascinating component, if we have layers of information, so we've got a resiliency zone, we've got that we are animals and we are impacted by the rhythms of nature, just like trees and everything else, animals. Our brains are hardwired for survival. And so understanding how, and again, this is just a brief snapshot. And if neuroscience is something that excites you, I strongly recommend doing more research because this is just a tiny little bit. But the executive state of our brain is the one that problem solving opportunities. You can access your wisdom and unlimited skills. And we only have access to our executive state when we're in our resiliency zone, when we're operating in a way that we're not in a protective response. And so the emotional state, connection, sometimes it's yelling, sometimes it's verbal reactions, and then the survival state. So our amygdala is part of that, and it's hardwired to protect us. So anything that's ever happened in our life that is stressful, that might have been toxic stress, or might have even just been a little persistent stress, our amygdala catalogs as danger. And so anytime it senses anything that's similar to that, it sends off alarm bells. And so we have to learn how to navigate those alarm bells and say, am I in danger right now? Or am I safe? Can I use a skill to calm myself down? And so again, this is a very quick explanation of the brain science. But it's an important component because also, like the micro pennies in the bank, the more we can train our amygdala that we are okay and we can navigate this situation, it can calm down and give you access to your emotional and executive states of your brain so you can access logic and reasoning. And every time you experience something unpleasant, experience an emotional response, fight or flight, and then you use a skill, you're training your brain in a new way so that you're not as reactive to the spiral and you can navigate it more tactfully. And just another example of that, Dan Siegel, I think is the name that I'm trying to remember right now, has a great example of the hand model. And so what it looks like to flip your lid. When your prefrontal cortex is engaged, you're calm, you're rational, you've got mental flexibility, able to make good decisions. And when our amygdala is triggered, big emotions arise, we experience anger, fear, anxiety, sadness, unable to make good decisions or calm down easily. Another one that I've seen is like a barking dog. So you've got your like calm, rational self, and then you get triggered or something upsets you, and then you've got like the barking dog. And so if you work with younger kids or younger people, that one can be kind of a good explanation. My 4-year-old has a really hard time not throwing right now when you tell him no. And so you have to kind of move in to make sure you're safe. And even if it's a no, like, no, you can't jump off that, or no, you can't throw the cat across the room. He gets very upset. And then immediately after whatever happens, if he does get out of control, and he feels so bad after. And so just understanding, like, gosh, we're all just doing the best we can with what we have. And we are instinctual animals. And so really learning how to add those pennies to the bank of regulation and using our skills can help navigate the world a lot easier. Any questions? I feel like I'm talking a lot. I promise we'll get to skills soon. Okay. So the survival responses, highlighting the amygdala's job. Survival responses are automatic responses that occur during times when we perceive a threat. And the trickiest part is that if you think of it like you're in the woods and there's a bear chasing you, yeah, that's scary and you're going to need to respond. But so many times our bodies perceive a bear when there's not a bear there. And so learning how to um, respond in a way that doesn't use up all your resources. But then again, also, if the environment is threatening or perceived to be threatening, the person may live in a constant state of distress. So if you are in a threatening situation, um, then figuring out your support system so that you can access the resources to get yourself back in your resiliency zone to problem solve. Because it's really hard to get out of those situations when you're in fight or flight. But with PTSD, there might not be that danger, but we still flip our lid. Absolutely, Sandra. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. And so that's the perceived that as long as you are safe from the threat, our amygdala says to so many different triggers or reactive situations that we are in danger and we flip our lid. And so learning how to understand when you are safe and using skills to retrain your brain, create new neuronal pathways, so that your post-traumatic stress disorder reactions aren't as controlling of yourself. And that, again, is a very nutshell version. EMDR is a really great therapy modality for that, as well as art. And if anyone has more questions about that, please ask in the chat or we can talk about it. But yeah, post-traumatic stress disorder is a very real concern when your amygdala is always telling you you're in danger, or not always, but when it is often. I actually just had I hurt my knee a month ago after 20 years. I'd hurt my knee when I was 20 years ago, and my leg had a PTSD reaction. And as a therapist, I love the neuroscience of understanding how things emotionally trigger our like PTSD or our emotions. And my leg, when I just twisted my knee wrong, my muscles in my leg had a reaction. And the majority of my physical therapy has been to calm my muscles down in my leg. And it has been an interesting journey. I've been using a lot of skills, but it's also been so fascinating to see truly just how effective our bodies are at protecting us, even when it's not always helpful. So anyway, they're impressive, our bodies. And so understanding the layer of the calm down. So our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, that's a different name. Yes, the Buddha belly. That's great. Thank you, Erica. And thank you, Sandra, for bringing up PTSD. And so understanding the sympathetic nervous system is the one that controls our organs during times of stress. And so when you're reacting to a trigger, a perceived threat or a real threat, our heart rate goes up, our breathing goes up, our blood pressure goes up, we sweat, our digestion goes down, our mouths get dry. And so helping ourselves first, and then also the people we work with, to understand that reaction and that these are really important flags of information. I wouldn't even say red flags, but just like noticing what's happening in your body so that you can be aware. It's really all about awareness and then understanding the parasympathetic nervous system response. And so the skills that I promise we'll get to soon help reduce your heart rate, reduce your breathing, reduce your stress hormones, and get your body back online. And breathing is absolutely part of that. All right, yay, we're finally to a skill. So tracking, reading our sensations. Tracking is the foundation for helping stabilize the nervous system. Tracking is noticing or paying attention to sensations, to what is happening inside the body in the present moment. So think of tasting a lemon. And like, even just right now, as I think about putting a lemon in my mouth, it makes my mouth kind of water funny and my eyes pucker. Our body has a memory to that. And unless you're allergic to lemons, there's no actual threat there, but you have a reaction. And so the same thing happens, whether you're in danger or not. We have reactions. And so what we pay attention to grows. I love this image too. It's like, if you're going to water it, you're going to grow it. If you're not going to water it, you're not. And so with tracking, the sensations we pay attention to get stronger. And so you have control most of the time to choose to pay attention to the pleasant and neutral sensations, and reduce the impact of the unpleasant sensations. And so the PDF that Mary mentions is this activity that we're going to do is in there. And so I just invite you to take your hands and rub them together. And take a couple of breaths, just neutral. And so right there, you had a physical experience. And so I invite you guys to raise your hand and share audibly or type what that tracking experience was like for you. Noticing what happened between your hands, maybe up your arms. Slowed your breathing down.
I noticed my hands were a little bit sweaty from writing, and then I started thinking about it, and it feels like they got even more sweaty.
Okay, yeah, that happens. Yeah, thank you. Another thing, I wear rings and I have to take my rings off for this activity because the sensation of my rings banging against each other is very unpleasant. And so just allowing yourself to do those. Generated heat in my hands. The sound of my hands rubbing together became louder. Okay, I was able to focus. Thank you. I was able to focus on my hands and being mindful instead of my mind being everywhere else. Nice. So that's also the other component is like when you're tracking, calmed your mind. Great. When you're tracking a sensation, for me, it was calming, but I did think it would not feel great if my hands were sweaty. Yeah. Or dry. I would imagine might be, yeah, noticing there's times it's more pleasant than others. And truly the hands are just one part of your body. And so we have the ability to, most of us, start at the top of our head and track all the way to our toes. And so being able to notice when we have a sensation in our body that is associated with a situation, perceived threat or a real threat, and tracking that and saying, okay, this experience is causing my heart rate to go up. I'm going to take some breaths and maybe put my hand on my chest, which we'll get to. It's a gesture. So thank you. Tracking. You guys know tracking. And then just this is a fun noticing the commonalities between some of the emotions. The one that stands out to me so quickly is love and anger and happiness, and how and this is a heat photograph, I believe is what they call this. And so noticing and contempt. Oh no, contempt isn't in there. I got the words wrong. Anger, happiness, and love. They all have kind of a similar temperature, and they're all the common area is the chest. And so gosh, sometimes, we can be overwhelmed with love and happiness, and then you might experience anger at the same time, or the anxiety. Um, and so just again, kind of normalizing just how the sensations in our body operate. And the more we're aware of that, the easier it is to navigate that information. And so this is another sheet that I'm 100% sure you have in your sheet. I did change the colors on the slides though, I chose them to be more pleasant. There's bright red on the sheet that you have in your PDF that I don't love, but I didn't know how to change that. So just choosing little things like that that are more pleasant than others, and giving yourself permission to choose the pleasant thing. Learning sensation words. So expanding your sensation vocabulary. When you experience discomfort in your body, where is it? Does it have a vibration? Does it have a size? Does it have a temperature? Does it have a pain? Does it have a muscle reaction? What's your breathing? What's your heart rate? Yeah, sometimes taste, density. Are your hands? It's sweaty. We need to put sweaty on there. Rough, smooth, thick, thin. Does it have a weight inside your body? I experience it in my jaw and get a scowl on my forehead. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sandra. If we're stressed about something, clenching our teeth, yeah, we can feel tension in our shoulders, and sometimes just the awareness of like, oh, my shoulders are really tight. My jaw's really tight. I'm gonna just put my shoulders down. Can help with our body's reaction to the stressor. And so this is just a little bit more with tracking, is noticing and or bringing your attention to what is happening inside your body at the present moment. And so when we are able to notice the sensations, we can focus on the one that is more pleasant. And one other thing that I just love about the Crumb model is that it categorizes sensations as pleasant, neutral, or unpleasant. And so there's not good or bad or positive or negative. There really is minimal judgment, if any. The only judgment would be if we bring it, and then just being aware of that and trying to let it go. But really allowing yourself to notice things without putting any extra information into it. Is this pleasant, neutral, or unpleasant? And if it's unpleasant, it might have information for you. And if it's unpleasant and you can't sit with it, or you don't want to, then shift to something pleasant or neutral and let that sensation grow. Going back to those plants, which plant do you want to water the weeds, or do you want to water the plants or the trees and the flowers? And then so also noticing the tracking your nervous system release. So once you've tracked, then being able to say, oh, okay, my sympathetic nervous system is calming down. My parasympathetic nervous system is coming back online, which means that my amygdala is calming down and I can access my logic and reasoning again. Sensations of parasympathetic nervous system coming back online are trembling, tingling, yawning, stomach gurgling, burping, warm, cooling down. Paying attention to release sensations can help the body return to the resiliency zone, because then you're also feeling empowered in that moment of your body getting a little bit out of control with your fight or flight response, taking over your sympathetic nervous system, and then using a skill to get your parasympathetic nervous system back online. All right. Resourcing. I've been using this skill a lot lately when I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and my knee hurts. One of the best ways to learn how to develop your sensory vocabulary is through identifying a personal resource and noticing sensations on the inside. And so just noticing, this one's obviously, I have to step out. Oh, good luck. Thank you for letting me know. noticing what is going on with this group of people and the connection. They're eating food can be pleasant most often. Sometimes it's not. Just kind of noticing the connection, the smiles, that process of being with others, hopefully is pleasant. If not, then maybe try different others. Resourcing. Okay. A resource can be a person, place, thing, memory, or part of yourself that makes you feel calm, pleasant, peaceful, strong, or resilient. A resource can be real or imagined. It can be internal or external. And I always recommend when we're practicing our resource that it's somewhere where you're not with other people, because sometimes that can just add an extra influence. So now I invite you to practice a resource. So while you're listening, I'm going to close my eyes because I can access the dialogue better. I invite you to do the same if it feels pleasant. I want you to imagine a place, real or imagined, that feels pleasant, where you feel calm, supported. And within that place, I invite you to imagine what you see, a couple things that you can see, a couple things that you can hear, a couple things that you can smell, what the temperature is like on your skin. And now bringing the awareness to your body. Are you sitting, lying down, standing? And then finding a calm, pleasant, or neutral sensation in your body. And then choosing a word or a phrase that represents this place and sensation. And then repeating that word or phrase a few times in your mind or out loud. And then take a breath. And now you have a resource to access when you need it. This resource can be if you're gonna go into an uncomfortable meeting. Like the first time I did this crumb presentation, I did my resource for about 10 minutes, imagining it so that I could get my parasympathetic nervous system online. If I'm with my kids and they're not listening, sometimes I'll step into a different room as long as they're safe and visualize my resource so that I don't yell. When I get mad, sometimes I yell and I try really hard not to. And so I'll use this as one of my tools to get back into my body, get back into the moment. And just like any other skill, when we use these things, when we don't need them, they're so much more effective in a moment than when you do. And so practicing your resource when you're brushing your teeth, or not with your eyes closed, but driving to work, or anytime you're alone for a few moments, tying it to another activity that you do throughout your day, and repeating the word or phrase a few times is really helpful to link the skills together. Okay. And I invite you, you guys can share it in the chat, but if you have a pen or paper or a notes in your phone or on your computer, write your resource down. I also encourage myself and others to write it on a sticky note, your word or phrase, and you don't have to tell anybody. But it's just such a helpful reminder to see that and then practice your resource. And then when you need it, you can bring your body back to that state a lot easier. Again, I love my river analogies. And so it's like learning how to swim in calm water or row a boat in calm water. You want to practice the skills when you're not in a rapid with a bunch of high risk situations. You want to practice them when things are calm and you're able to notice and pay attention. All right, we're just going to keep flying because I just realized time is blowing past us. So grounding, in addition to the resourcing, so we've got tracking, resourcing, and grounding. Those are the main three. And then we're going to go into help now. So if folks need to log off at one for their next thing, feel free to do so. And then I'll just kind of keep trucking. So grounding, noticing what your body feels like where you're sitting right now, noticing what your feet feel like on the ground, inviting yourself to breathe and allow yourself to feel supported, and being in the present moment. And I love that. If our relationship to the earth is not safe, then all other relationships do not develop optimally. So it's like pretty heavy, but kind of cool. When we are grounded, we have a sense of self in relationship to present time and space. Grounding is really, really helpful. And it's not, there's also a whole line of people who like to go ground outside, which is really pleasant also. But if you don't have access to the outside easily throughout your day, you can ground in your office or in your wherever you need to, anytime. And here's just some visuals of that grounding. Yeah, standing against a wall, lying down on a surface, or floating in water. All right. And yeah, I think, okay, I'll do a grounding exercise and then people can log off if they need to or stay on if they can. So this is another activity. I invite you to close your eyes if it feels pleasant, leave them open if it doesn't. I invite you to imagine you are a strong tree. Whatever tree comes to mind is perfect for you. And as you breathe your natural pace, I invite you to imagine roots growing down the bottom of your feet, through the floor, into the soil, the rocks, maybe to an aquifer layer of water. Next, I invite you to kind of sit up a little straighter as you embody the trunk. And then imagine you can put your arms out if you want or not, just kind of doing a little stretch too. Put your arms out in your mind or in real life and have branches extend. And if you have leaves or needles, inviting the pleasant sensations of the sun's light to nourish your body, your tree body. And that one, again, is really quick because it's almost 1 o'clock. I invite you also in this moment to check in what your number is. Think back to that slide with the scale of 1 to 10. And so roughly like 4, 5, 6, I think 3, 4, 5, 6 are your resiliency zone. And has your zone shifted? Thanks, Erica. Yeah, I can't remember what you were earlier, but hopefully you're closer to your resiliency zone now than you were when we first started talking. And allowing yourself that time to pause and to get back in your zone and kind of validating like, oh, hey, I was a little stressed when we logged on and now I'm feeling better. So practicing those skills. If you're one of the people that have to go at 1 o'clock, at the end of this PowerPoint is more information um, about the Trauma Resource Institute, which is the developer of Community Resiliency Model. And it also has an app called iChill. It's available through iPhone or Android. There is a link in the PowerPoint. You can also just go to your app store and whatever type of phone you have and type in little capital I, chill, CHILL. And all of these resources, as well as the resiliency zones, are in that app, and it's a great resource. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Mary. Mary just put it in the chat. But if you're available to stay, we'll keep going. So skill 4, gesturing and spontaneous movements. And so I've been doing it throughout the whole thing. I love putting my hand on my heart, my chest. I guess, where's my heart? Left side. It's very pleasant and comforting. And so I would imagine we all already have some type of gesture or spontaneous movement that we do to self-soothe. And then the idea of this resource is to build on that or create your own, or build on it and kind of amplify it. So pick one that you already do and make it intentional. And so intentionally adding it to your resource of the calm place that we did a minute ago. And then tying those things together. And because the importance of gestures, a movement usually of the body or limbs that expresses or emphasizes an idea, sentiment, or attitude. And so like some people will rub their hands on their legs. And just, again, like these are such simple things, but bringing awareness to the impact that they can have when we use them intentionally is my favorite part of this model. And these ones are great with kids too. Oh, another resource that I use for kids, instead of pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, think bugs. And I've taught my kids, my family kids, and then kids that I work with, butterflies for pleasant, moths, like the moths that blend in with trees, for neutral, and then wasps for unpleasant. And so if you kind of have a conversation with them about it in advance when they're struggling, like my 4-year-old can say, Mom, I've got wasps all over my body. And I'll say, all right, let's go for, whatever we need to do to help the wasps get out. And so it can be really helpful to shift the language that's a little more age appropriate. But these skills are useful from 0 to 110. Okay, so gestures, the use of motions of the limbs or body as a means of expression. And no movements or gestures that do not cause self-injury or self-harm. These are empowering movements or gestures. I'm a huge fan of Ted Lasso, and so this one just makes me smile. There's a scene, this is Rebecca, the blonde woman in the blue dress, where when she's going into a meeting, she'll put her hands up and make a really funny sound to feel powerful. And she like intentionally does it before a meeting. So I just love that. And so thinking about ways that you can utilize these resources as a strength. Protective, putting your hand out. Joyful, dancing, playing with a scarf. Just kind of broadening your idea, because it's the heart. Your hand on your heart is pretty common, of course, but it can also mean different things for each person. And so finding what resonates with you and feels pleasant is all that it's about. And then universal spiritual gestures too. So prayer, putting your hands together, and then also expanding it. So if it's something that is universal, the sense of connection you can experience by doing that gesture can also provide you a great sense of comfort and support. And so now I invite you guys to think about a gesture that you want to do. And it looks like most everybody's videos are off. And so, oh, there's a few. Hi. Feel free to do your gesture. If you want to shut your screen off or do it openly for anybody to see. Ian, I use the signs of the cross when I'm upset. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's definitely a universal symbol. Thank you. So yeah, do a gesture right now and just notice what it feels like. And if you're, you feel more pleasant to shut your video off, do that. Or not, it's okay. If anybody else wants to share, the gestures are fun because it's always things like that one I haven't thought of. So the signs of the cross, like everybody does it differently, but like that's something that works. I cross my hands on my chest. Yeah. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Ian. So again, no pressure to share, but it's kind of fun to see what people do. All right. Rubbing on the back of my neck. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Holding my hand on my tummy. Yeah. It can be so comforting. And I was also kind of protective too. Like, this is my space. Fingertips to your lips. Oh yeah. With gratitude. Gratitude is so powerful also. Thank you. All right. So help now skills. Again, it's so funny. These are just so common. I imagine a lot of these things you've heard of or tried. But again, the power in this like model is picking them, choosing ones that resonate, and doing it consistently. And so the help now skills are that exactly how they say. If you don't have time for a resource, you don't have time to think about your body on the ground, like you're not on the ground, grounding your body, maybe being a tree, drinking a glass of water. Ice water can be really pleasant for some and really unpleasant for others. And so sometimes too, like here we in salmon, I'd imagine most everyone, maybe not in the Oregon person, but a lot of the people in Idaho have snow in the winter. And so if you're really struggling, you can go outside and put your hands in the snow just for long enough to get yourself back into your body and just notice what that cold feels like. Or you can run your hands under cold water and then come back inside and warm up. Again, no, we're not going to freeze ourselves. And then so what I invite you to do is today, while I've got a slide for each of these, I want you to pick two of these and try them in the next 24 hours. And then keep doing it. And when you need it, it will be so much more helpful. And I just love that part about this is that we're building new neuronal pathways. Our brains are so fascinating and wonderful when we give them the support they need, when we can give them the support they need. So water, touching a surface. They've got those little calm strips I think I've seen, and they're rough. And so like maybe finding one of those or some sandpaper or smooth surface if that's more pleasant. But being intentional about adding a surface. Yeah, those calm strips are fun. All right, look around the room or space, paying attention to anything that catches your eye. So truly, it's bringing our senses online and bringing us into our awareness. So wherever you are right now, look around and notice what's the first thing that catches your eye. Oh, cool. Okay. Name 6 colors that you can see right now. Count backwards from 20. This one is lovely because it just like our brains cannot think about a unpleasant stimulus and a neutral or pleasant stimulus at the same time. And so counting can be so helpful just to kind of derail an unpleasant experience. And I find that sometimes counting is almost too easy. Depending if counting is not easy for you, then great. Like whatever one resonates is ideal. There's also a ladder breathing that you literally, I find, Google ladder breathing. I need to put it on my slide. I forgot. But you breathe in on 1 and out on 2 and go to 20, and then you count back down and your breath shifts. And so each reverse 1 to 20, 20 to 1, changes your breath. And so you literally cannot do anything other than count and breathe in and out. And you'll find yourself on 30. I found myself on 50 when you get stuck in your thoughts. And then you just gently remind yourself to start back at 1. But ladder breathing is one of my favorites. Help now notice the temperature of the room. So again, a lot of these are already, oh, thanks, Mary. A lot of these are things that we kind of did in our resource also. Just noticing your temperature. And another phase, kind of a one, in the summer, sometimes we get overheated and we can be too hot, and noticing what being too hot feels like. Or in the winter when you're really cold and you're chilled to the bones, it's so unpleasant. Noticing how we respond to people when we're cold or hungry. Oh boy, don't ask my family about that one. When you're hangry is a term I'm sure people have heard. Eat a snack and get back in your resiliency zone, or put on a coat, or take a cool shower. It's amazing when we're aware what temperature can do. Notice the sounds within the room or outside. Again, in Salmon, where we are, the birds have returned for the summer, and man, they start early and it's fun. I love to hear. We have little chickadees out our window. Walk around the room and notice your feet making contact with the ground. So again, just intentional movements, bringing yourself to the present moment, and shifting to pleasant neutral. Push your hands or back against the wall. Again, like these are silly. This is also one of my favorites. I guess I have more than 2, but just standing up and pushing on a wall can be very regulating. And so I'd even invite you to try, again, in the next 24 hours, maybe try more than 2 and pick your favorite, your 2 favorite. And then do those often before you need them. And then the final skill, you guys have made it all the way through. Shift and stay. So it really is that simple as shifting to one of your resources. And so it's fun to look at the hand. We've got the resources we learned today, tracking, resourcing, grounding. These are not in order. Help now, and all of those, shift and stay. So you can keep, another reminder, sticky notes. You can look at your hand. You can download the iChill app. But truly, the power in this model is creating pauses throughout your day, every day. Just pause and check in with yourself. When you get in your car after a long day, or just when you get in your car to go home, or you're walking home, or whatever, however you get home, take the bus. Just sit and for a minute, do your resource. But the more you tie in these resiliency pauses, we call them, to your routine, the more we are intentionally putting pennies in our resiliency banks, so that when we get bumped out of our resiliency zone, we can come back in that a little bit easier. We can spiral more gracefully. That wasn't very graceful. We can spiral more gracefully. And so if you're still with me, here, and again, this PowerPoint will be available. Feel free to take a screenshot. It truly was just, I thought of questions to try to bring online our strengths. Because when we're feeling overwhelmed by the world, or like we're not struggling, we're not operating within our resiliency zone as much, asking ourselves thoughtful questions where we're empowered, can be so pleasant. It can also be unpleasant. So if you're a service provider and you're asking these questions to someone who's really struggling and they can't answer them, email me and we can talk more about that. But, or if it's you, if you're struggling to answer these questions, email me and we can talk more about it. But when we can create these little pauses of time throughout our day, like what part of me needs the most compassion right now? What a thoughtful question that we don't ask for ourselves very often. So just answer these in your head or write them down or take a screenshot and do it later. But these are questions that can help you enhance your resiliency. All right, I'm gonna go on. If anybody needs it, let me know. And then being able to, if you choose to write it down, read your statement of encouragement to yourself out loud. Saying these things to yourself, positive, supportive things to yourself, is another form of encouragement that we can all benefit from these days. And then shifting to neutral or pleasant. And again, it's just pennies in your resiliency bank. So I'll leave it there for a minute in case you want to write it down. Again, this PowerPoint will be available on the Empower Idaho website. And I can also email. Okay, there we go. And there's my email. I also am a Reiki teacher. And so, and I offer couples work. And so there's my contact information, email, website, and then the trauma. Mary put it in the chat earlier. But the Trauma Resource Institute iChill app, again, is very helpful. Can you go back real quick? Yes, I can. I think. There we go. Is that the one you needed, Erica? Let's see. Nice, yeah. So if anyone wants to unmute and ask questions, we've got 15 more minutes, 14 minutes. Please ask questions or share maybe a skill that you liked or one you didn't like, and you're like, nope, not doing that one. That's always kind of fun too. Yeah, if it's unpleasant, please don't do it. Noticing and that's empowering too. If something's unpleasant, you're in charge of how you navigate that. Thank you, Pamela. I'm so glad. Yeah. And if you're still here, checking in with yourself, choosing a number 1 to 10. Where are you? How close are you to your resiliency zone? How far? And again, there's no judgment whatsoever. It's 100% just information. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day a little bit more in your zone. Thank you, Heather. Yes,
Well,
such a good reminder.
thank you so much, Sarah. Wow, that was really wonderful. And so I did put the slides in or I did put the slides in, but I did put the survey into the chat there. So, and once again, I will be sending an email to all of you after this is over with the links and the slide link in the presentation. I also want to thank our wonderful ASL interpreters, Fran and Lauren. And if you have any questions, if Eden, you'd put our email in the chat again, email us at empoweridaho@janus.org. And the slides and recording will be available on the website in a couple of days. And we really thank you all for attending. And once again, thanks, Sarah. This is just such a wonderful way to move into the afternoon.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.